during these unprecedented times. The Ministries of Labor and Transport and Local Government have within their portfolio several key agencies which have been integral to addressing the ongoing concerns of the people of the Bahamas during the COVID-19 pandemic. These agencies include the Road Traffic Department, the Port Department, the Department of Local Government, the Post Office, the Met Department, the Bahamas Maritime Authority, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Authority, the Department of Labor, the National Tripartite Council, the National Training Agency, the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality, the Consumer Affairs Division, the Prices Commission, and the Consumer Protection Commission. Bahamians would be aware that over the last 4 years, we have experienced a variety of natural disasters, inclusive of monster hurricanes, tornadoes, massive storm surges, and now we are faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, a virus that has wrought dire economic, social, and health consequences on our beloved nation. In an effort to reposition ourselves, we have sought to adapt to new ways of working with our staff and the community, and new methods of customer engagement. This reorientation has boded well for our service delivery as we seek to foster a renewed focus on business continuity and resilience. Several of the departments within my remit are actively pursuing initiatives to drive the transformation of service delivery and to ensure continued access to vital services. It is my intention to report to the nation on how the ministries have effectively and prudently managed the challenges and opportunities presented during the COVID-19 pandemic, and how we have sought to mitigate the concerns, challenges, and hardships resulting therefrom. I will begin an overview of the functioning of the Department of Local Government during the pandemic. In March of 2020, with the onset of the emergency orders, Family Island administrators within the Department of Local Government formed and led local task forces comprised of all local heads of government agencies and other stakeholders. Their main purpose was to plot a course through uncharted waters while maintaining the integrity of healthcare services, the well-being of residents, and to ensure the continued delivery of everyday quality services. All efforts were centered on adhering to the required protocols to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 infection. While faced with many challenges, Family Island administrators were able to bridge the gap between the central government and Family Island communities by doing, number one, ensuring that all residents had access to food and water, and in many cases, psychological assistance. Number two, providing ease for submission of special requests to the competent authority, for example, to travel and for business operations. I would be remiss if I did not speak to the important issue of local government elections, which are held every 3 years. These elections were scheduled to be held in the Family Islands on the 24th of June this year. However, the elections have been suspended until the cessation of the emergency orders and are scheduled to be held within 90 days after the orders end. I now turn to the activities of the Port Department. Since the COVID-19 Emergency Powers Order came into effect in March, several changes were made to the daily operations of the Port Department. In an effort to maintain the required social distancing protocols and hence provide a safe environment for staff and customers alike. Customers are encouraged to use the email link port customer service at bahamas.gov.bs to speak with a port officer regarding port procedures for registration and licensing. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the need to develop an online solution to allow customers to complete and submit port applications online became even more apparent. As a result, the Port Department, in collaboration with the Department of Transformation and Digitization, DTAD, created the first phase of its online solution. This first phase allows customers to complete applications to register a private or commercial vessel of any size, register a dock or marine structure, apply for a foreign charter license, register a private or commercial watercraft, such as jet skis, banana boats, and parasails, apply for an A or B class master license, and apply for a D class operator's license. Customers will be able to upload supporting documents with each application and receive email updates from port officers on the status of their application. In the second phase of the online solution, customers will be able to make payments online. It is important to note that the long-awaited International Shipport Security, ISPS, compliance unit was established on the 22nd of October, 2019 to provide comprehensive and effective ISPS compliance oversight of the international port and ship facilities throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The ISPS Compliance Unit currently serves as the recognized security organization of the Bahamas and is charged with the responsibility of random spot checks, initial endorsement, and statements of compliance renewal inspections, as well as ensuring that all ISPS complaint entities maintain the highest standard of ISPS compliance. I am pleased to report that during the lockdown, the Porter's Key Dock facility operated with minimum staff between the hours of 12 a.m. to noon. Nonetheless, a port officer remained in place at all times to verify the number of vessels present and to allocate space for vessels to dock. There are 22 mail boats that service the Family Islands. Substitute vessels are servicing routes to Cat Island, Fresh Creek Andros, Georgetown Exuma, and Clarencetown, Long Island. It is particularly noteworthy that the mail boats continue to meet the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic and deliver the mail and freight to the Family Islands on time to help our people during the emergency order periods. It is also noteworthy that passenger travel and inter-island travel went relatively well, with owners and operators complying with the orders. The freight intake increased despite the national lockdowns, and the operators complied with the competent authority by transporting passengers for medical emergencies only. At present, a weekly mailboat schedule is prepared for the general public. and interested persons may contact the Dock Master's office located at Porter's Key Dock between the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. As I move to the Road Traffic Department, I wish to first of all note that COVID-19 has had its toll on its operation. I am pleased to inform, however, that in advancing the operations of the Road Traffic Department, the staff continue to re-engineer its services to provide greater efficiency in this new normal. One of the positive outcomes has been the implementation of the drive-through system, which has sought to reduce the need for in-person interaction, eliminating the congestion of long lines and the resultant overflow of customers wishing to access the department services. With the continued lockdowns, this aspect of the department's revised service delivery continues to work smoothly. Additionally, recognizing the importance of servicing motorists in these challenging times, we will soon reopen a satellite agency in New Providence for licensing and inspection of vehicles. This road traffic facility is located at West Bay Street, adjacent to Clifford Park. It is important to note that the IT unit adapted to the ongoing restrictions presented by the emergency orders and assisted the driver's license section in the issuance of driver's license renewal, learner's permits, foreign license transfers by way of the road traffic management system. Additionally, a system for clients to renew their driver's license without having to come into the department was implemented. The only requirements were a picture and the customer's signature. To date, this service is being offered at all Road Traffic Department satellite offices. And I now turn to the operations of the Post Office Department. The Post Office Department has set as a priority the technological transformation of its operations. The department has acquired the necessary hardware, such as PCs, monitors, and printers to facilitate its cash receiving and e-commerce readiness process. Due to the series of curfews and lockdowns imposed, it appeared that there was a decrease in demand for services. This was further exacerbated by responses to employees' exposure to COVID-19, resulting in further office closures. The offices in Moores Island, Sandy Point, and Bimini were those predominantly impacted. I am pleased to report, however, that all offices have since reopened. We are still in the hurricane season, and so we are patently aware of the pivotal role the Met Department plays in the delivery of its services at this crucial time. The department is tasked with assisting with the safety and protection of life and property in the Bahamas by providing short and long-term services to aviation professionals, mariners, and the general public. In an effort to fulfill this mandate, to observe, monitor, and forecast the weather, the Met Department must remain open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Therefore, during the pandemic, both the forecast office at LPIA and the upper air section, which releases a hydrogen-filled balloon with a radio transmitter attached to determine the stability of the atmosphere, continued its mornings, afternoon, and night shifts. And that was done on a daily basis. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the goals and initiatives of the Bahamas Maritime Authority for the remainder of this year. However, the implementation of a business continuity plan that introduced equipment and resources to enable the working and undertaken tasks remotely has enabled the Bahamas Maritime Authority to provide continuous service to its ship owners and equally to effectively represent the Bahamas at international, regional meetings, conferences, and seminars. The BMA has effectively contributed to the government's national effort to respond and address the COVID-19 challenges of ships, including cargo ships, passenger ships, and pleasure crafts operating in and transiting Bahamian waters in accordance with the emergency powers orders. The measures and actions include providing advice and guidance to the competent authority, collaborating with other government agencies, affected ship owners, ships, industry groups, and related parties, undertaking authorized activities to facilitate maritime operations. I now turn my attention to the Ministry of Labor. As you are aware, over the past few months, the Bahamas and indeed the world has experienced a significant increase in unemployment. COVID-19 has dealt a serious blow to our local economy, and in particular, our tourism sector. The Bahamas has experienced a significant decrease in the number of visitors to our shores. The closure of major resorts and hotels, and consequently, the temporary loss of thousands of jobs and income for thousands of individuals directly and indirectly employed in the tourism industry. To address the unemployment challenges posed by COVID-19, the Ministry of Labor and the government continues aggressively to work with our industry partners to stimulate the Bahamian economy and reopen the tourism sector. We predict that the recovery process will not occur overnight, but will be a gradual process that will take time. We remain certain that the Bahamas will recover and emerge victorious. We are a resilient nation, a determined people who have faced numerous challenges and setbacks in our history. And I am confident, and we as a government, we are confident that we will overcome this economic and health crisis. The Department of Labor Public Employment Services Unit continues to serve as an online skills bank which allows unemployed Bahamians who are looking for work to apply for jobs. Local companies can also use the site to search for new employees. Since COVID-19, this service has been utilized by an increasing number of Bahamians to seek for gainful employment. I would like to encourage persons seeking jobs to log on to our website or visit the Department of Labor to determine if there is a job there for you. The whole process is online. The Ministry of Labor and the Department of Labor continues to focus its attention on providing an effective conciliation process whereby trade disputes are resolved in an efficient, effective, and timely manner. Over the past few months, my ministry has remained committed to fostering an environment of industrial harmony in our country. The Ministry of Labor and the government has strengthened its partnership with the two major umbrella unions, the National Congress of Trade Union Bahamas and the Bahamas Trade Union Congress, as well as the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation, to ensure that workers' rights are fully protected. On April 27th of this year, the National Tripartite Council, or the NTC, submitted a set of recommendations to the government to review and amend a number of the statutes to respond to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the industrial relations environment in the Bahamas. The recommendations were based on international labor standards and focus on its efforts to stimulate the economy and employment, to support businesses, jobs, and income, and to protect workers in the workplace. Following the appointment of the National Economic Recovery Committee by the Most Honorable Prime Minister, the NTC submitted a recommendation to the committee that contained a return to work guidelines for the private sector. The guidelines were submitted after extensive consultation with the International Labor Organization's Decent Work Country Caribbean Office and 14 Caribbean states and a number of countries in South America. The return to work guidelines, which were also distributed to all of the social partners, were designed to ensure a smooth transition for the return of employees and customers to the workplace as the Bahamas recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic, and are based on the highest international standards from the World Health Organization and the International Labor Organization. Additionally, the NTC executives collaborated with the Ministry of the Public Service and other government agencies for the establishment of the return to work guidelines for public officers, which were implemented by the government. The National Training Agency, or the NTA, is charged with the responsibility of workforce development with a keen focus on training our nation's youth. We refer to those between the ages of 16 and 30 who are employed and or currently unprepared for the workforce, and those looking to take advantage of existing and emerging job opportunities. In response to COVID-19, the National Training Agency has adopted its full online strategy that leverages its innovation over the last 3 years. This innovation includes the development of a full interactive online platform called Brightspace. This platform allows for the registration, training, tracking, and assessments of all trainees throughout the Bahamas. All assessors, trainers, and monitors are fully trained in the use of this online platform. Young Bahamians throughout the Bahamas can now register, be assessed, and participate on online training and certification courses offered by the NTA. During the onset of the pandemic, the agency quickly transitioned to its online platform and completed the training and certification of 163 students who were involved in the pre-apprenticeship program. In July of this year, the agency launched its first fully online cohort, resulting in 232 young Bahamians from 13 islands participating. These students have successfully completed their soft skills training and are now more than halfway through their technical skills training. So certifications are being obtained in office procedures, web designs, graphic designs, information technology, and Microsoft Office suites. The agency is currently planning the launch of its Institute of Leadership Management, or ILM. This is a new online cohort number 4 during this month. Registration is open and being obtained from all islands of the Bahamas. And I encourage young people to register now to participate in this ILM program. Currently, there is no face-to-face training being conducted at the agency. The agency, however, is well prepared to offer blended learning compliance with the Ministry of Health COVID-19 protocols, social distancing, wearing of masks, and regular sanitizing. The NTA expects to train an additional 800 young Bahamians over the next year, including every island of the Bahamas. As the agency expands its reach throughout the Bahamas, it intends to develop an island-specific focus, which involves identifying training and workforce developments of each island and tailoring its training to meet those specific needs of those respective islands. The agency is currently partnering with Doctors Hospital in the training of 30 EMTs. At the conclusion of this training, top graduates from this program will be offered full-time employment with Doctors Hospital. This partnership is a model of the strategic partnership the agency is developing with industry leaders as it continues to carry out its mandate of training and improving the workforce of the Bahamas. Being able to place successful trainees into the workforce remain a big focus of the agency. Through its job placement unit, the agency continues to engage and partner with industry leaders in the recruitment of trainees. The agency is currently conducting screening and the recruitment for cruise line industry. The Mediterranean Shipping Company and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines are involved with this exercise. These exercises are expected to result in hundreds of jobs in the short term. The NTA remains a go-to agency for employers seeking well-trained entry-level employees. I now turn my attention to the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality, BBSQ, which is the national standards body of the Bahamas. The BBSQ has been actively involved with the Ministry of Health and some members of the COVID-19 task force and other health and wellness stakeholders in this COVID-19 environment to adopt the following standards: specifications for masks, specification for hand sanitizers, specification for personal protective equipment, and guidelines for the beauty industry. Given the Prime Minister's call for code of hygienic practices and guidelines for the food street vendors industry, and also for guidelines for coconut street vendors, the BBSQ held virtual dialogue meetings with national stakeholders in conjunction with the Bahamas Agricultural Health and Food Safety Agency to plan and strategize the way forward. These standards are now out for public comments and should be finalized by the end of this month. I now turn my attention to the Consumer Affairs Unit. The principal mandate of the Consumer Affairs Unit is to police the entire Bahamas marketplace to ensure that the Price Control Act and regulations are being complied with, and customers are receiving the protections intended by law. The officers in this unit are also charged with the responsibility of serving as agents for the Consumer Protection Commission, the CPC, to ensure that customers who may experience challenges with the providers of goods and services can find redress at the Commission. I am pleased to report that since the onset of COVID-19, the Consumer Affairs Unit price inspectors have beefed up their presence and visits to local food stores in order to protect the well-being of consumers. From January, some 1,196 retail establishments, including food stores and pharmacies, were inspected in New Providence and 1,680 in the Family Islands. There were a number of minor infractions recorded, and in such cases, merchants were officially warned in order to change their prices on the spot in the presence of our officers. The Consumer Affairs Unit of the Ministry of Labor, Northern Bahamas Division, continues to be active in Grand Bahama and Bimini. To date, there were 31 warnings given and 576 inspections done on the island of Grand Bahama and Bimini. The Price Control Commission continues to play a pivotal role in protecting the interests of consumers in our country. Over the past several weeks, the Prices Control Commission, the PCC, has received numerous complaints of price increases, especially on certain essential items like eggs, alcohol, Lysol disinfectants, and meats. After thorough investigations by our inspectors, the PCC is satisfied that, in most cases, these price increases are the direct result of the negative impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the cost of food worldwide. The USA Bureau of Labor Statistics reported in April the sharpest increase in grocery store prices in nearly 50 years. The pandemic has been affecting the supply chain in the USA, which causes, consequently, prices to rise on staples in the Bahamas, such as eggs, flour, and meat. Since we import most of our supplies from the USA, the rise in prices on basic staples has a direct effect on prices for those items in all of our local stores. I now turn my attention to the Consumer Protection Commission, the CPC, which continues to carry out its mission, which is aimed at protecting consumers from fraudulent business practices, as well as equipping consumers with relevant, up-to-date, and accurate information about their legal rights. During this past year, the CPC has held various campaigns and programs to educate the public on their rights as consumers. While all walk-in customers have ceased at our office complex, consumers can lodge their complaints using any of our online portals. By email, they could contact the Consumer Protection Commission at info@cpcpbahamas.org. The website is www.cpcbahamas.org. The CPC can also be contacted on Facebook at Consumer Protection Commission Bahamas. And I will repeat that. The CPC can also be contacted on Facebook at Consumer Protection Commission Bahamas and Instagram at #CPC Bahamas. Our 24-hour hotline number for consumers is 357-7898. And I will repeat that also. Our 24-hour hotline number for consumers is 357-7898. All of these platforms are monitored and answered daily by our dedicated team of officers. In closing, I wish to acknowledge the challenges and opportunities which resulted from COVID-19 pandemic as it relates to the work and operations of the Ministries of Labor and Transport and Local Government. The pandemic has afforded the ministry's staff the opportunity to be more creative in our approach to work. It has caused us to be more sympathetic and supportive in our acts and expressions of humanity and service. We are acutely aware that all of us have been made more vulnerable and susceptible to this virus. But invariably, it has caused us as a people to work together to secure the safety, well-being, and ultimately the future of all Bahamians. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We will now entertain questions from our media partners. I would like to first state to the media that we ask that you limit your questions to 2, please. And you can direct your questions either to the minister or to our technical team. The first question will come from Mr. Matthew Moxie from Eyewitness News.
Yes, good afternoon. Hotel workers have been agitating for redundancies as they have been home for, I think, more than half of a year. And I understand that the emergency order suspended their redundancy provisions, requiring employers to either call them back to work or terminate them with full compensation after the 13-week period. However, as we all know, the Prime Minister is moving to have the emergency order extended once again, further putting these thousands of workers at a disadvantage. The COVID numbers are not looking too good, and the country's borders are about to reopen next week, and there's no telling where we are headed in this pandemic. Even with hotels reopening, when they say sometime in Thanksgiving, not all will be back at once, as the minister would have said in his remarks, that it is a gradual process. So now these hotel workers are left with either quitting and forfeiting their benefits or sitting at home and waiting with no certainty as to when they will be called back to work. So, Minister, what is the government doing, or what can the government do to help these workers who are feeling the economic pinch of this outbreak?
Matthew, thank you very much for that question. First of all, I'd like to say that the Ministry of Labor and the entire government, we empathize about the condition of each worker in the tourism industry. It is a very trying time to have a head of a household or both heads of a household to not be working and to be unemployed. We understand the hardship, we understand the stress, both economically and from an emotional point of view. The government has done a significant put in a significant of measures to assist all laid off workers during this period. The National Insurance Board has made available, and the Ministry of Finance, millions of dollars to aid and to ease the burden being caused by these layoffs. The emergency orders calls for the suspension of the provision in the Employment Act, which allows an employer to temporarily lay off workers up to 12 weeks or 3 months. That provision has been suspended pending the end of the emergency orders and 30 days thereafter. That was done particularly to address a lot of businesses, small, medium, and large businesses that did not have the financial capacity to pay severance pay to all of their employees. This is a once in a century event that we are experiencing, and no economy in the world has experienced an event like this. So the government has to balance out all of the demands and all of the needs of the entire society. So we are hopeful that the tourism sector will open, and Atlantis has already made an announcement that they will start their partial reopening in December. So some of the employees from Atlantis will go back to work. We're very pleased about that. We are hopeful that Baha Mar will follow Atlantis and do the same, and also the other hotels. But I'm happy to report that since the initial lockdown and the initial layoffs, which were thousands of Bahamians, many of them, the vast majority of them, are now back to work. The vast exception is in the tourism sector, the transport sector, for example, the taxi cab drivers, the limo drivers, the hair braiders, the straw vendors, and some retail outlets, in particular those on Bay Street. So Matthew, we're doing all that we can to ease the burden, but also to strike a balance in terms of the realistic economic necessity of our society.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, why was the plug pulled on the unified bus system, especially as it was funded in part by a grant from the IDB?
That was a decision that was made by the government. A lot of the government programs, as the Minister of Finance, the Deputy Prime Minister said in the House of Assembly, the government has had to reorganize and reprioritize its programs. We are concentrating in terms of allocation, specifically for the generation of jobs, for the maintenance of our health system, and for the maintenance of the economic stability of the country. A lot of programs, including the unified bus programs, were one of those that we had to withdraw the funding from.
Thank you, Mr. Moxie, for your questions. We'll now take questions from Ms. Altavis Munnings from ZNS.
Good afternoon.
Good
My first
afternoon.
question is for either the minister or the director of labor. The minister talked about the thousands of Bahamians who have now been experiencing unemployment and that COVID-19 has made a significant impact on the unemployment numbers. Are labor officials right now able to determine a percentage of the current percentage of unemployment in the country?
Yeah, Altaviz, thank you for the question. It is very difficult for us to place a figure on the unemployment rate in the Bahamas at this point. The Department of Statistics is charged with the responsibility to conduct their surveys, which they do twice a year, which now has been suspended, so that the unemployment rate can be ascertained. The central bank has indicated that they are of the view that in March, April, and May, at the initial beginning of the pandemic, that because of all of the layoffs, that the unemployment might have been between 30 to 40,000 Bahamians. But the bulk of those employees were temporarily laid off. Most of them have gone back to work, with the exception of the sectors that I have already mentioned. Before the pandemic, we had an unemployment rate around 10%. Our workforce in the Bahamas is around 225,000 Bahamians. And I want to repeat that, 225,000 Bahamians from Inagua to Grand Bahama. I do not know, and the Ministry of Finance, it's difficult to calculate or even to estimate what the unemployment rate is now. The last figure from National Insurance revealed that the unemployment assistance that the Ministry of Finance is funding, that there are 29,000 Bahamians who are getting that assistance. So you can factor that in and say you can come up with an estimate to the 29,000, the percentage of that of 225,000 Bahamians, and come up with a percentage. But I would be very irresponsible to try to guesstimate what the unemployment rate is at this point.
Thank you, Altavis. You had another question, please?
Yes, Mr. Saunders, thank you. And thank you, Minister, for answering my first question. My second question is out of concern for consumers. Minister, you noted that the Consumer Welfare Protection Commission did several inspections on retail establishments, but how is the commission looking at any price gouging during this pandemic? I know that a lot of residents are concerned about the numbers, the prices at just regular food basket items and just medicines, etc. How is the Consumer Commission ensuring that the consumer is paying the right price for these essential items at this time?
We have a lot of inspectors that have been working full time, and as I said, they have visited over 1,000 stores in New Providence, and over 1,000 visits to stores in New Providence, and over 1,000 visits to stores in the Family Islands, and in Grand Bahama, over 500. We are ensuring that the price control prices that they are complied with. But I wish to say that we had a lot of complaints. I got a complaint from Grand Bahama from one of the, I think it was Minister Kwesi Thompson, who referred a complaint to me from Grand Bahama about a drastic increase at one of the pharmacies on one of the items. We immediately dispatched an inspector to investigate that. And this would have been in March, early April. And it was true that the price did go up significantly. But the owner of the pharmacy was able to show us the invoices where he bought the items in the United States at the increased prices, and that was a direct result of the prices going up in the United States. So I would like to say to consumers that if you see prices going up, it does not mean that the price control regulations are being breached. The owners and operators of pharmacies and food stores and other establishments for price control items are allowed a certain percentage, and they add the cost of those items onto that percentage. So if the cost of the item goes up, then the price goes up.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Altavis. I'll now take questions from Jared Higgs from Our News.
Good afternoon, Minister. How are you? My first question has to do with road traffic. So I heard you mention there that plans are in place to open a satellite location where people can license their vehicles. My question is government willing to let private sector companies who want to provide vehicle licensing services, is government willing to perhaps partner with companies like that in order to, reduce the long lines at road traffic and perhaps make it more efficient?
Yeah, Bradley, if you don't mind, first of all, I want to thank you for the question, but if you don't mind, I'd like the controller of road traffic who is with us to address that question.
Good afternoon. Go ahead, Jared. Could you ask the question again, please?
Sure. So the question is government, or I don't know if maybe the minister, because I'm asking about, I guess, government, but is government willing to let private sector companies who want to provide vehicle licensing services, is government willing to partner with companies like that in order to make road traffic more efficient?
Well, I do believe that road traffic will be more efficient in the shortest possible time. If you pay attention to what is happening now with the long lines at the road traffic department, that is simply because, one, we don't have sufficient satellite stations, and that's why we are reopening the office at Fort Charlotte. As soon as we are able to open the Carmichael Road station, we will be able to alleviate the backlog that exists with the long lines. It all based on the amount of outlets that the road traffic department has. In terms of outsourcing to car companies, that is a decision that the government would have to make. But as the acting controller of road traffic, my concern with that will have to be that a road traffic personnel will have to be at the site to make sure that the vehicles that are being inspected by these dealers are being inspected and not persons just reporting to road traffic saying that the vehicles are being inspected. It is the way moving forward. We can look at it, but the road traffic staff will have to be at this establishment to make sure that all things are properly accounted for. I hope I answered your question, sir.
Yeah, just let me add to that, Jared. There have been made many proposals have been made to the government with respect to modernizing and advancing the efficiency and speed of inspections. There's something circulating on social media now about certain mechanical establishments, auto establishments, getting the exclusive to do inspections. I can put that to rest now. That is not so. That is fake news. But we are actively examining and looking at different ways of doing the inspection, so that we can make it easier for the motoring public to get their vehicles inspected.
Okay, thank you. My second question, Minister, do you think that the government should have its own buses on the road. That is public buses, meaning taxpayer-funded buses, in order to provide wider access to far-reaching communities in New Providence.
Firstly, let me say that I am very pleased, and the government is very pleased with the operations of the jitneys, of the buses and the operators, and also the taxi operators. They are complying with our COVID-19 health protocols. They have invested money to make sure that they are equipped, both the jitneys and the taxis. So I want to congratulate them. The Prime Minister mentioned to me last week that he was very pleased to see that the jitneys were complying with the health protocols. As far as government getting directly involved in the transportation business, that is something that has to be decided by cabinet. It isn't something that's before us. It isn't something that we are considering. One of the things that we had planned was to make an attempt to unify the bus system, which would allow some of the remote areas of New Providence to be serviced. That program is suspended. It has not come to an end. It is suspended until the funding becomes available.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Director Sands. And thank you, Jared Higgs, for your questions. I'd now like to move on to Ms. Tyler Simonet from JCN News.
Yes, good afternoon to the ministry and to all who are listening. My first question is also in regards to road traffic. A lot of people have been complaining that the practical and the written tests for getting your driver's license, it takes just too long. You know, some people have been waiting months for an appointment. Is there anything specifically being done for that area to maybe shorten the wait time? And also, is there any idea when tests will resume?
Thank you for your question. I'd like Mr. Sands to answer that question, please.
This was what? This is what? Simonet. Good afternoon, ma'am. And in terms of the exams, the practical and the written exams, those exams are on hold until further notice. You must take into account that the exams are held in a very close environment where there are roughly but 5 to 10 persons could be in the room. We have been utilizing our thermometers as well as our hand sanitizers, and with the increase with the COVID cases, we have to take the safety precautions to make sure that our staff and their families are not at risk. So in light of that, we have suspended the driving exams as well as the written exams until we are satisfied, we are given the all clear by the Ministry of Health or the proper authority that we can resume those examinations. We do not, I must put emphasis on the fact that we do not want to take COVID-19 home to our families, so we have suspended those 2 areas, ma'am.
Thank you, Director Sands. Ms. Simonet, you had another question, please?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much for that answer. My second question is for the minister. It's understandable that the country's workforce has been hit very hard by the pandemic, but do you have any hope that with the scheduled reopening next month that it will help the unemployment rate decrease, even if only slightly, or at least get the ball rolling on getting people back to work? What is your expectation of that?
Yes, Ms. Simonet, since, first of all, thank you for the question. Since the reopening of the economy, a significant amount of Bahamians have returned to work. The major challenge, the major challenge now is getting all of the hotels operating and the cruise lines. Because as you know, the retail stores, particularly on Bay Street, which most of them are now closed, are dependent on the cruise lines coming back to the Bahamas. And with respect to the hotel workers, we are doing the Ministry of Tourism, Minister Diagla and his team. They're doing an excellent job to put in the necessary protocols to ensure that we can have the quick return of tourists to our destination in a safe manner.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Ms. Simonet, for your question. We'll now like to move on to Leandra Roll from the Tribune.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My first question has to deal with the local government elections. The minister, I know you had said that the minister had said the local government elections is scheduled to be held 90 days after the emergency orders end. But I want to know what sort of changes can we expect to see implemented in regards to that process, as we considering that we do not know when the pandemic will end.
Thank you for your question, Minister.
Yes, first of all, thank you for the question. With respect to the local government elections, one of the things that we wanted to be very careful about was that the government stay away from any event or occasion that would mandate the appearance of large numbers of persons. And that is the main reason why, because of the health protocols, in terms of the voting in the Family Islands, we wanted to err on the side of caution, so as that we can mitigate the spread of the virus. And that is why we put that provision in place. But local government is functioning. All of the local government councils, all of the townships throughout the country, all of those who were elected are still in place, and it is not affecting the operation of local governments in the Family Islands.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Roll, you had a second question, please?
Yes, I did. I know the minister also mentioned that a few major resorts are set to begin its phased reopening soon, but I also want to know, has there been any discussions between officials and perhaps the ministry and officials from Club Med in San Salvador, perhaps on a revised reopening, considering that they announced that they plan to delay its reopening to December of next year? And I know many employees there had expressed concern, as it is the largest employer on the island. So have any discussions been made in recent weeks between the officials there?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, that is a serious concern of the government. As you know, the Club Med resort at San Salvador is the major employer of Bahamians on the island. The Minister of Tourism, Minister Diagla, has been in contact and in several conferences with the Club Med organization to see to what extent we can cause Club Med to open earlier. It is a serious issue. And the government is doing all that we can to cause an earlier opening of Club Med at San Salvador.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Ms. Roll. We'll take our next set of questions from Ms. Jasper Ward from the Nassau Guardian.
Hi there.
Hi there.
My first question is for the minister. Can you say how many individuals have registered with the job banks with the Department of Labor following, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic?
I don't. Thank you, Jasper, for that question. I don't have these specific numbers in terms of the registration. We would have to pull those from March. That would be from March to date. No, we don't have the specific numbers, but that is something that we can get for you. And provide those numbers to you.
All right, thank you. My second question, has the government received any revenue from the cruise ships or other large ships that are riding out the pandemic in our borders?
To my knowledge, no. I don't think that there was any revenue generated. As you know, we have a relationship with all of the cruise ship industry partners. They form a major part of our economy, not only in Providence and in Grand Bahama, but in a lot of the family islands. A lot of the cruise ships are actually registered. A lot of the cruise ships, if not all, I will have to check that, but I think all of them that were allowed to harbor in our waters were actually registered under the Bahamian flag with the Bahamas Maritime Authority. So they were actually Bahamian registered ships. But there hasn't been any charge.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Ms. Ward. We'll now take questions from Mrs. Karen Bain from Global 99.5 FM in Grand Bahama.
Good afternoon, Minister, to you and your team. Good afternoon, Bahamas. Bahamas Air and other airlines have voiced their concern with operating at half capacity due to COVID-19 guidelines. It was not profitable for them, and thus they requested to operate at full capacity. Our jitney and bus drivers are challenged with the same dilemma. Can we get an explanation as to why our jitney and bus operators are not granted the same privilege as the airline industry to operate at full capacity?
Thank you, Karen, for that question. My understanding is that initially, Bahamas Air made a corporate decision to operate. I think they started off with a small percentage, and gradually they increased the amount of seats that they made available. As you know, Bahamas Air is a independent corporate entity that is governed by an independent board. And once they are in compliance with the protocols from the Ministry of Health, they are permitted to do that.
Thank you, Minister. Ms. Bain, you had a second question, please?
Yes, thank you, Minister, for your answer. My second question, and I think this is again for the Minister. The government has announced plans to commence with capital works regarding sidewalks in New Providence. So what are the national projects or initiatives for those in the workforce who are not in the construction industry, especially as it relates to our musicians and residents in our family islands who are well over the age of 25 and do not fit into the National Training Agency model in order to decrease the number of unemployment?
Thank you very much for that question. The government has several initiatives. The Ministry of Finance through the SBDC program, the Small Business Development Center, they have provided millions of dollars that has been available for the development of small businesses.
Give us 2 seconds, please. The minister's internet is dropped. Maybe we should move. While we wait for Minister to come back to us, we'll now go to questions by Natario McKinsey from Eyewitness Digital.
Hi, good day. Thank you. This may actually be for Mr. Farquharson. I recall that, sir, you were involved in the National Productivity Council, or there was some work in that regard being done. Just wanted to find out or get an update of where things are with that. I think legislation was supposed to be a part of that project. Just wanted to find out, get an update on where that is at.
Okay, we'll ask Mr. Farquharson to answer that question, who is with us via Zoom. Mr.
Thank you
Farquharson?
very much for that question. The National Tripartite Council would have submitted a recommendation to the government of the Bahamas for the enactment of productivity legislation and the establishment of a National Productivity Council. The government has advised us that draft recommendations are under active investigation. I can also say that the National Tripartite Council also submitted the recommendation to the National Economic Committee, and we have been advised that the National Economic Committee has also indicated to the government of the Bahamas to support the recommendation of the NTC with regards to the National Productivity Council, and we expect the government, once they finish their deliberations on that, to have that piece of legislation enacted and formally establish the National Productivity Council in the Bahamas.
Thank you, Mr. Farquharson, and thank you, Mr. McKinsey. Do you have a second question, please?
Yes, sir. Again, for Mr. Farquharson. Just as maybe a follow-up, I'm just wondering, I know the National Tripartite Council has done a lot of work as it relates to in industrial relations and that sort of thing. Just was wondering if there were any things being looked at or any recommendations in terms of labor reforms as a result of COVID or otherwise.
Again, thank you very much for that question. The National Tripartite Council has submitted a number of recommendations to the government as it relates to labor reform. The greatest of those is the transformation of the industrial tribunal. As you know, there has been significant improvements in the tribunal regarding its space and its technology. And the National Tripartite Council has submitted a recommendation to the government that is being considered by the Office of the Attorney General and the government to transfer the functions of the industrial tribunal to the civil side of the Supreme Court. We believe this will give the tribunal not only additional efficiency, but allow the tribunal to enforce its own rulings, and thus give the concept of trade disputes and the resolution of trade disputes more power. In addition to the transformation of the tribunal, the National Tripartite Council is also reviewing additional amendments to the Industrial Relations Act and the Employment Act. One of the things we want to do is to formally establish in law a lunch hour in the Employment Act to make sure it's not an hour a lunch period. Make sure those workers who have to go 8-9 hours have a statutory break. And those are some of the things that we are considering amongst many things to review and amend the Industrial Relations Act as well as the Employment Act. And finally, there is discussions, a recommendation has been tabled before the National Tripartite Council to also review the minimum wage. And we hope hopefully another few months, the council will have an opportunity to sit and look at the minimum wage and see if there is a need to make any recommendation. At this time, no discussions has taken place as yet regards to that.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Mr. Farquharson. And thank you, Mr. McKenzie. I'll now like to go back to Ms. Karen McKenzie from Global 99.5 FM. Ms. McKenzie, if you can ask your first question again to the minister.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Karen Ferguson Bain, no problem. Yeah, my question to the minister was that the government has announced plans for capital works to begin in New Providence with sidewalks. I'm wondering what is the national projects or initiatives for those persons in the workforce who are not in the construction industry, especially as it relates to musicians and residents on our family islands who are well over the age of 25 and do not fit into the National Training Agency model in order to decrease the number of unemployment.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very, very much, Karen, for that question. I don't know how much you heard earlier that we had a little problem. Not much. No, but basically the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, they have been charged by the government to generate and to lend funding, to make available funding to small and medium-sized businesses in Nassau, in Grand Bahama, and all the family islands. Because we understand that in terms of the construction projects, the capital projects that we are doing, and there's quite a few, that would only appeal to a certain section of the community, as you said. So we are trying to broaden the scope so that other persons could also take advantage.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Ms. Ferguson Bain. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our presentation for today. I'd like to offer special thanks to you, our media partners, to the people watching us on television and streaming live on Facebook. I'd also like to thank the minister for his presentation and also my colleagues for attending. Thank you very much and have a good evening.